So in the 1940s, there was a U.S. psychiatrist named Walter Freeman, who actually, proposed treating mental illness, based on Egas Moniz' technique from Portugal, and Egas Moniz actually won the Nobel Prize for this. But Freeman actually, the American entrepreneur here, basically decided to perform these lobotomies with an ice pick. So these were known as transorbital, across the orbit of the eye, ice pick lobotomies. And, Freeman believed that mental illness was related to overactive emotions, and that by cutting the brain away, you could cut away those feelings. There's no basis for this at all. And actually, subsequent, studies where they actually had good research design found no benefit to these specific procedures, these grisly procedures. There's some remarkable work that came out, art that came out of this. There's of course the famous One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, which has a very strong Oregon connection. But this is a tremendous example of the consequences of poor or absent research design. There is this poor 12-year-old boy who was brought to this kind of circus tent, almost evangelical revival that Freeman would put on in towns, where he would go from place to place, and people would bring their relatives that they thought were mentally deranged, so that he could perform this procedure. And I was just going to show you, using an actual human skull here, why a transorbital ice pick lobotomy would be so effective, because there's your brain is surrounded right by a skull, right, and then there's some tough membranes below that too that help to protect the brain. But the skull is not of equal thickness all around it. So if I take off the top of the skull here on this particular individual, and I bring this closer to you, one of the things that's kind of remarkable is how there's huge variations in the thickness of the skull. And look above the eyes. These are the transorbits. This is the area where they would, Freeman would lift the lid and stick an ice pick right up there, and cut away, at the frontal lobe, which is right behind there. And there's other areas of the skull that are actually quite interesting, like don't get hit right in there, because that's also like a lot thinner than other portions of the skull. Right here in the front, right, and right here in the back, you've got rather thick skull, because we tend to fall forward or back. But this is not an area right here. You can sort of see it from this side too. Let's see, I don't know how I can see it, but you can really see how thin the light shines through that very easily, above the eye orbit.